Hi friends, I'm excited to share a new layout with you today for the August YouTube Sketch Hop. Here are all of the talented ladies that I am hopping through this sketch challenge with, and there is the fabulous sketch. It came from, I think, Page Maps is what it says on there. It's a little bit blurry, but I think it said Page Maps. So I started with a stencil and modeling paste from Vicki Boutin. And I am going to go through and just add a few lines. So the lines are a little bit imperfect, and they are kind of like sketched lines almost is what they look like. So I am adding just a tiny bit of modeling paste that's going to poke out behind some paint that I'm going to be adding. But before I do that, I'm going to set that off to dry, and I am going to pull out some papers. I'm using papers from the Have a Nice Day collection from Echo Park, and then also some beautiful papers from the Bloom and Grow collection from Cocoa Vanilla. So I pulled out a rainbow of colors and patterned papers because in the sketch you see kind of like a fanned out area of patterned papers over there to the right of the photos. And so that is what I am going for. And of course, I'm going to do it in rainbow order. So I took out all of those papers, and then I am going to freehand cut some triangles, not being too particular about how wide they are or how thick. They are going to be kind of askew, and that's okay because they're just going to add another layer behind the photos. So I love how that looks. And in the sketch, they definitely are all different sizes and kind of different widths and things. So that was okay with me. So here, what I'm going to do before I start gluing those down is I am going to go ahead and distress the edges of each of those strips of paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and get some fussy cutting out of the way because I was still waiting for the modeling paste to dry. Modeling paste takes a little bit longer than texture paste to dry, and so I had a little while. And I went ahead and fussy cut a bunch of flowers. And now my modeling paste is dry, but I need to go ahead and check and see where those little strips of paper are going to go. So I'm going to kind of lay those out and make sure I like the placement of those before I get too crazy with mixed media that back there behind them. So I am going to lay them out in rainbow order. And then when I got to this stage, I went ahead and put my photos on top. When I got to this stage, I realized that I needed one more blue. So I am going to end up adding one more strip of blue patterned paper, and it's going to be a color that's sort of in between the lighter blue and the navy blue. And that's a much older paper from my stash. I don't even know. It might have been Hip Kit. I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but it was in my drawer of color patterned paper. I have all of my scraps of color patterned paper from, past collections and different things that I've used. I have those in rainbow order in drawers. And so I went ahead and pulled a few from there. I also did pull one of the oranges and one of the yellows. So the orange, I think, is a Vicki Boutin paper, and the yellow, I think, might have been a Paige Evans paper. So those were also from that color stash. And what I am going to do now is I am going to add a bunch of different paints on the background. If you know me, you know I always have to add some messy elements here and some textures and colors and layers and patterns and different things. So I am starting with color. The pink is a color splash from Shimmer's Paints, and it's called Flashy Flamingo. And then I went to a Vibes Mango Tango, and then a Colorings Tangy Tangerine. I love the names of these. And then, that might be what I'm doing right now. No, Orange You Glad is the Colorings. That's the one I'm doing right now. The Orange You Glad. Oh, you know what? I had another color stuck in there. I had a Distress Oxide Spray Worn Lipstick. That's that lighter color, the second color that I used. Now I'm adding the Orangey Glad. And I do have a picture of all of the paints. The last picture in the video is a picture of all of the paints that I used. So if you want to catch a little still shot of that, if you're curious, or if you don't want to write down the names as I'm saying them. So the yellow that I'm adding right now is a color splash called Squeeze the Day. And the color splash is an acrylic spray. So it kind of goes on a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to splatter in some Vibes Mustard Seed. So that was that yellow that I was using. And then for the green, that is going to be Don't Citron Me. Cute. And then I don't think I have video of every single color that I'm adding. So I do have, I added Vibes Beach Glass, Color Splash, Rockin' Robin, and then a Vibes Blue Jeans. And I also did throw in a Distress Oxide Spray that is Salvaged Patina, and Distress Oxide Spray Uncharted Mariner. So those are all of the colors that I used. So that right now it looks crazy and like so much, and it's still going to look like so much when the layout is finished. But a lot of the paint is going to be covered with patterned papers, and of course my photos. So you won't see all of that paint back there. Oh, and I left this footage in just as a word to the wise. When you are using different mediums and switching between all of the different bottles of things, it would be wise for you to screw on the lid so that you don't spill it all over your layout like I did right there. So I had thought I'd put the lid on the Rockin' Robin Color Splash, and it turns out that nope, I did not. So when I went to pick it up, it spilled all over the place, my hand, the paper, everything. So I spent a little bit of time with some white gesso covering that up. I'm going to do several little layers of white gesso there. But I did leave it in while it was horrific when it happened, and I was probably saying not nice words in my mind, maybe out loud even, who knows. As that was happening, I did leave it in because I just wanted to show that even when you make a huge mistake like that, you can cover it up, especially when you're working with mixed media, because I just put some white gesso on there and nobody's ever even going to know the difference. So on the final layout, you can't even tell. It just looks like another little layer of paint or something, so no worries. So I'm going to go ahead and add my triangles of color here. And I did glue them towards the center of the circle, so I do not have adhesive on all of them all the way out to the edge, because I did want to be able to bend them up a little bit. I don't end up needing to do that because I'm going to be adding a whole bunch of hand stitching that I wasn't originally planning on adding, or maybe I was, who knows. But I left them kind of like where you could layer them, or like where I could fold them up if I wanted to, but I don't end up doing that. So now I'm going to add lots of layers of ribbon and all different kinds. So in this sketch, you can definitely see sort of texture. It looks like strips of ribbon, some rickrack, and some, I don't know what all kind of ribbon, like little ribbon with little balls on it. So that's what I'm adding. And I just went through my stash and pulled out a bunch of different ones. So I started with the red, and that's a ribbon that has, I love the texture on it. It has little teeny tiny balls on it. And then I added some orange ribbons and some green, and then a sequined ribbon. I've got all kinds of stuff on there. So, and I did not put a ribbon in each color, but I did do hand stitching or a ribbon in each color. So I added some long threads of hand stitching, like I often do, in between the ribbons, and then that added, and I matched the embroidery thread to the patterned papers and the colors that I was using. So you can see that all right there behind the photos. And then my photos I backed with white tissue paper because I wanted them to have a layer, but I didn't want it to be like more layers of patterned paper because there's already so much going on the background. So I went ahead and put white tissue paper behind those and then a layer of craft foam. And my photos, the theme for the sketch this month is Bon Voyage. And so my title is going to be Bon Voyage Summer. So the pictures are of one of the last days of summer. We still have a couple more days of summer left, or my kids do. I have been back at school for weeks, but my kids have a few more days of summer left. But one of the last days that they had of summer, my son had a couple of his sweet friends over, and we love their family, and my daughter loves them too. So I have a picture of them all outside eating popsicles. I thought that was super cute. And they are in the garden. You can't necessarily see all the flowers in the garden in the photos, but I know they're there, so I'm adding flowers to the layout. And they're wearing all different colors, blues. My daughter is wearing lots of pinks and all different colors. And then my son is wearing an orange shirt with yellow shoes. So I thought a rainbow theme was perfect because they've got all those colors are represented in the photos, the greens of the yard, and all of that. So I used the flowers that I had fussy cut there. Those large flowers are from Pretty Little Studio, from a patterned paper that I had actually used to teach a layout at a weekend that I went up to, where was I? Illinois. I was in Illinois teaching at Creative Chaos, and so I had a few of those flowers left over from that patterned paper, so that's where the big flowers are from, Pretty Little Studio, and then all of the small flowers are from Cocoa Vanilla, and then the leaves are from Cocoa Vanilla, and then also just some that I freehand cut, some from some green cardstock. And then here what I'm doing, there was at the top of the sketch, there's that striped border, and so I did not have room at the top of my sketch, but I did have some room over on the left side to add a striped border. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you saw there, I squared up the patterned paper with the back of the layout. I did not add adhesive on the edge, on the outer edge. I just added it like on the inner edge. Hopefully this is making sense, so that I could cut off the white paper and I wouldn't have to try to figure out, okay, what makes it 12 by 12, or, where does the edge need to go? So I just did that, glued it to the back, and then was able to cut off the white paper and distress the edges of that. And I did not mention, but I am using, as always, I used the white Foundations Mixed Media White Cardstock from American Crafts and Vicki Boutin. And I am hoarding it because I don't think they're producing it anymore. So I am buying it up as often as I can find it. Okay, and then I added a bunch of tangled thread to the clusters. So normally I do that when I'm adding flowers, but on this layout, I was all out of order. So I think the spill threw me off, and then I was just, winging it from there. So I went back and added tangled thread, and then these little letters are from a long time ago from Hip Kit, and I am going to spell out Bon Voyage. That's going to go on top of my photo, and I did choose white because what else in the world was I going to choose with all of those colors back there? So I guess I could have chosen blue, I don't know, or green, because those colors are down at the bottom, but I thought white was a good choice here. So Bon Voyage. And then summer, I did have these thickers that are old, like super old. I don't even know what collection they're from. It's been so long ago. But I am still on a mission to use my thickers from my stash. So I did that. And then my journaling block in the sketch, there is a journaling block down there at the bottom below the hearts, and I used flowers in place of the hearts. And then it's got that little journaling block, so I used a journaling square from the Cocoa Vanilla Bloom and Grow collection, and I am going to tuck that under there. I originally put it just straight on the background, but then I'm going to pull it off after I've glued it on, and I'm going to add it to a piece of white cardstock. I glued it down to a piece of white cardstock so that I could distress the edges, and then I'm going to add it back on. right, and I'm getting everything situated like I like it. And then I'm going to go back and add some half pearls and crystals. And I always get asked, if I don't say it, I always get asked where these are from. They are from Buttons Galore and More. I buy them individually, each color individually, and then I fill up my box from Container Store. So I used a bunch of different colors that coordinated with all the colors in the layout, which is every color. And then I added half pearls and crystals to the centers of the flowers, and then I'm going to go back with pops of color from scrapbook.com. And I'm going to add those to the centers of each flower and then kind of around the clusters. And I think that's going to wrap it up. I think that's going to be the last little detail there. Yes, so here is my final layout. And you can kind of see those paints in the background are shimmering, and the little crystals are sparkling, and the sequin ribbon is shiny. So lots of different things going on there, but I love how that ended up looking, and I love how easy the sketch made it to create this layout. And I hope you will check out all of the other ladies in the sketch hop are super talented and all have very different styles than mine. And I always love to see what they make with the same sketch, because it always looks super different, but I love every single one of them. So I hope that you will take the time to check those out. And then if you wanted a picture of the paint, it is coming up right now. There they are, and I hope you have an awesome day. Bye.